This whole presentation has been shot on Panasonic cameras. We have VariCams in the back of the room. We have an EVA1 here shooting in the side angle. And now Laurence Nunn from Panasonic is going to tell us a little bit more about these cameras.
Thank you. You may have seen some of the toys to my left over on the left-hand side of the stage here that give us the option of shooting VariCam and EVA1 in live mode. It's what we're going to talk about today. I've got like 4.5 minutes, so we'll blaze through this. Guess what all these shows have in common? All shot on VariCam or EVA1 across the board. The different kinds of productions that we've used, VariCams and EVA1s in live mode, all based around house of worship, sitcoms, episodic TV, sports, fashion. There's a laundry list of growing productions that have used VariCam and EVA1 in live mode. Some of our other partners, of course, we're delighted to be one of the main sponsors of the Tokyo Olympics 2020. We've worked with our friends at Disney and NBC News as well as Univision. Univision, I think, have 12 VariCam LTs that they use for live production in one form or another. The VariCam LT itself, we've reconfigured this to be able to work in live mode. You've got that beautiful native 4K cinema sensor, the dual native ISO, the colorimetry, all the factors that make the VariCam LT a fantastic product for standard production, for cinema style production, for single camera work. We can now put into a multi-camera mode. HDR ready, 14 plus stops of dynamic range, dual native ISO, 4K in camera recording with a 1080 proxy simultaneously on separate cards if you need to do it. So it's great for an offline edit. You can pull that proxy and then go straight to offline. Anybody use Panasonic cameras over the course of their careers? Yeah, lots of hands go up. You know that we've always been really, really good at color reproduction, particularly skin tones. That's a huge part of the colorimetry of the VariCam. The big box of crayons that we provide gives us that gorgeous colorimetry. We tie that in with a functionality we call dual native ISO. Most digital cameras today having one ISO function in camera, one film stock basically, usually 800 with a few exceptions. With the VariCam and the EVA1, we have two native ISOs, 800 or 5000 in the VariCam, 800 or 2500 in the EVA1. So that gives us the option to literally at the touch of a button add 2.5 dots of exposure to our image with no noise increase. So those situations where you can be much more creative with some of the small LED panels we've seen today. You can get into small areas and be able to get the shot and not have to, bring in 27 power cans to light the scene. You can do it with a couple of LEDs and be much, much more creative. How do we do that, you're all asking? This is actually a photo from NAB of 2015. There was half a foot candle on this scene. There are some actors in the background. This is taken with an iPhone. So you can actually really see what's capable of, the camera's capable of capturing over what we can see with a human eye. This is a classic example of what this camera is capable of. We're not adding gain and noise reduction to do this. This is actually happening at the sensor level. I could get into the technology with this, but I've only got 50 or 60 slides to do, so we'll cover that quickly. One of the factors that we've seen with having this in broadcast style mode, so I take my VariCam and I want to be able to use an existing style Fujinon box lens on there, but that's B4 mount, so I have to use a B4 to PL adapter, which inherently 2 times adapter loses me over 2 stops. I get that back immediately by going from 800 to 5000. So I'm not having to add additional lighting in the scene. Again, I can be much more creative, and it really kind of changes the game. One of the additions we did was we took one of our studio camera control boxes called the RCP 1000. We reconfigured that with a free firmware upgrade, so it gives you all the power of this functionality directly in the camera, and you can do this remotely over a Cat5 cable, so you're not into expensive serial cables. Unfortunately, this controller can only do 99 cameras. So we're really kind of sad that we couldn't do more. Obviously, we've seen Some productions, in some cases, actually use 15 cameras at a time on the HRP 1000. Literally at the turn of a dial, you can set a PoE switch and have 15 cameras running and do that very, very easily. Hybrid log gamut is now enabled in the LT as well, so you've got a ton of different options as far as HDR control. We're trying to look to the future on this and how HDR maps out. The EVA1 also has this adaptation in it too. We can very simply, with our control panel, customize half a dozen scene files. Those can be changed at a touch of a button. If it's a House of Worship performance, for example, where you've got 20 minutes of music up front, and then they flip to the sermon. I've got a lighting, I've got a lookup table or a setup specifically for the concert, and then I flip to my sermon at a touch of a button. I can change that colorimetry, so I'm not having a recut. I can take a 1080 stream directly off the body, and that can go direct to a web broadcast if we need to do it. Really, really simple functionality. And we've done the same thing with the EVA1. We've worked with our one of our third-party partners called Scarhoy. They've come up with their RCP control for that too. So you've got the 4K high-end VariCam LT, and you've also got the EVA1 that for a much reduced price can be able to do this as well. So we've got it covered across the board. And we've seen these cameras mixed together because it's the same technology in V-Log and V-Gamut, a big box of crayons. We can cut these cameras together seamlessly. We're also really happy, and this is a big deal for us moving forward. The S1H by Lumix is a new camera for us, 6K full frame in a DSLR body. Incredible specs for a $4,000 camera. 24 megapixel sensor, dual native ISO, just like the VariCam and the EVA1. 4K to 60 in a body that's less than 2 pounds. And this is also, by the way, the first mirrorless SLR that Netflix have approved for all productions. So we have, at this point, we have 6 cameras on the Netflix approved list. The VariCam LT, the VariCam 35, the VariCam Pure, the EVA1, the UC4000 studio camera, and now the S1H. So you've got every possible scenario of a live production or Netflix production that can possibly use any kind of colorimetry. And again, this is V-Log, just like the VariCam and the EVA1s, cuts together beautifully. That's it for me. Thank you for listening. Appreciate your time.